Hi guys, welcome back to Infinite Possibilities, the podcast where we explore the lives of amazing people, their choices, challenges and opportunities. And today I have a very special guest, Dr. Len Coote.
Karen, thank you.
Thank you for being on the podcast. So Len, he's actually a lecturer of business analytics here at UQ, and today we're gonna, explore his life. So we're gonna start from the very beginning. So Len, growing up in high school, what kind of child were you growing up? How would they describe you?
Oh, look, good question. I think I was fairly quiet, a quiet child. I think I had a very enjoyable childhood. I played lots of sports. There was lots of outdoor activities. There was also some academic pursuits, but I think it was an idyllic childhood. Everything that I could have wanted was provided.
Yeah, that sounds good. And Len, so what kind of sports did you play?
Oh, okay. Look, I played all the traditional sports. A lot of cricket, a lot of tennis, a lot of swimming, some cross-country running, so all of the usual sports.
Ah, you're very sporty, yeah.
Well, there was a time.
Yeah, that's good. And so when you were in high school, when you were, thinking about the future, what kind of things did you think of?
Well, I want to start with just a point about what happens when people look back on events.
Yeah.
And I think that there can be a tendency to see patterns in events, even if those patterns are ones that we're constructing in our minds, if they're not real. So that's sort of a disclaimer in a sense. But in primary school, I think I enjoyed maths and I enjoyed English. And at high school, again, I liked maths and I liked English. And perhaps that's not surprising. My parents are teachers. My dad teaches maths and my mum teaches English. So I think the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. I think I got a big dose of their background.
Yeah, that's so cool. So did you, want to maybe go into teaching? Is that what was the initial thought?
Yes, I did think about it. And I think at various stages I was interested in teaching at primary school level, teaching at high school level. And then when I got to university, I thought I could be a university lecturer. So that's sort of what I thought more and more about through my undergraduate degree. With each year I thought, I think this is something that I could enjoy doing. Now, maybe I showed a lack of perspective. Maybe I didn't see far enough. But it was as an undergraduate student I thought that university life could be a rewarding career.
Oh, was it because maybe perhaps you had a teacher that inspired you, or nothing of that?
I think I was inspired by what my lecturers were doing, and I think I could see that they had a real balance between the teaching that they were doing, the academic research that they were doing, and also the consulting research, the outside activities that they were doing. And I think that mix of activities really appealed to me. I think I was naive.
Yeah.
I think that many aspects of those three things are really quite challenging. And perhaps I didn't appreciate how challenging it was, or is. But looking at my lecturers, perhaps not many undergraduate students think this way, but looking at my lecturers, I thought, I'd like to do that. I'd like to do what they're doing.
Oh, damn, that's pretty cool, because I sure haven't gotten that feeling.
But it's I guess I was sort of 18, 19, 20, 21 and looking at my lecturers and thinking that could be a pathway for me. I find it remarkable when you talk to people who say, at age 10 or 12, I realised I wanted to be a concert pianist, for example, or I wanted to be a Formula One car driver, or I wanted to be an astronaut. I think I think I sort of worked out late what I would like to do, and I find it remarkable when I meet people who work these things out early.
Yeah, that's interesting because when you say you worked it out late, it's like I guess a very comparison thing. Because I know like plenty of people, including myself, who still don't know what they really want to do. So,
Sure.
Len, you sound like an early bloomer to me. Yeah, so when you said you saw what they were doing and you said you wanted a life like that for yourself, did it live up to the expectation now that you're here, fast forward?
Oh, look, I think in some respects it's even better than I imagined.
Ooh!
And in other respects it's more challenging than I imagined.
Tell me more.
Well, I think that there is this concept of academic freedom, and with your personal research you can pursue topics that are of interest to you, and yes, you have to be responsible to your colleagues and to the dean. You have to do research that's in the domain, in the field that you're working in, but you get to set the agenda. So there is this tremendous freedom in terms of what you do. And that's particularly the case at UQ. There's a lot of academic freedom around research topics and what you want to study. And I think I have really enjoyed being in that environment. My background is in business and marketing. My research interests are in quantitative psychology and an area called psychometrics, as well as quantitative economics and econometrics. And my research interests really are in how to bring these two fields together, the econometrics and the psychometrics. And I was able to do that, explore that agenda within the context of a very traditional and research-focused university. And at another university that doesn't place the same value on academic freedom, I wouldn't have been able to pursue those research interests. So I think I crave the freedom, and I think I've benefited from the freedom. And yes, ultimately you have to be responsible to your colleagues, and that means being productive. There has to be outputs at the end of it.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's like, I guess, the benefits. But what about the challenges?
Well, I think the challenges there are some subtle challenges, and with the research, you have to produce the outputs. And I mean, on one hand, you could say you're competing with your colleagues. On the other hand, there are lots of opportunities for collaboration. But I think what I didn't, one of the challenges might have been how difficult it can be to take an idea all the way through to the outputs. I think that can be that can be challenging.
Yeah, is that more to do with, I guess, like bottlenecks for like creating change, or is it just like it's like a very lengthy process?
I think academic timeframes can be quite long.
Yeah.
But other things I enjoy, if you look at the teaching, I mean, being in a classroom with young people like you, for example, is very rewarding. An academic high achiever, very bright, nice, going somewhere. I think I get a lot of satisfaction from the interactions that I have with students. And with the research, which I've talked about, the timeframes are longer and the feedback loops are longer.
Yeah.
Whereas with the teaching, you get immediate feedback from your class, and you can look at the faces and the expressions on the faces, and you can see whether you're teaching well or not. And getting that positive feedback can be very satisfying. So that was a big part of it as well, being able to work with young people. And again, being at UQ, it's such a good university, it attracts academic high achievers, and I get a lot of satisfaction from working with bright young people. It's enormously rewarding.
Yeah, that's cool. And Len, I remember like one day, like maybe 2 years ago, you asked me how I decided to go to UQ and how I decided to choose my degree. So I want to flip the question to you, because I know that you studied business at QUT.
Yes.
So how was that decision-making process like at the time?
Well, If I go back to high school, as I said, I liked maths and I liked English, and I liked economics. Within maths, I particularly liked probability and statistics. And again, I talked about mum and dad and their respective backgrounds. So I did think about studying economics at university.
Yeah.
But I think I was also a little bit instrumental, and I was thinking about it. This is before the university experience. I was thinking I'll have a career in industry, in business. And it was at a time where there was a lot of interest in economics, but also marketing was emerging as a really credible career path. And I thought, although I'm interested in economics, I'll pursue a career in marketing. And at the time I studied, there was no marketing undergraduate program at UQ, but there was at the QUT. And so that made the QUT the obvious choice. In fact, it made it the only choice.
Yeah.
So I did marketing, I did business and marketing at the QUT. And without going into too much of the detail, I really went through the academic programs there. I did an undergraduate degree, I did an honours degree, and then I went through the PhD program. I did break those programs up with a little bit of time in industry, but not a lot of time. I guess it was after the first couple of years of my undergraduate degree I thought, I really like this university environment. When I finished my PhD, by the time I had finished it, I guess when I started my undergraduate studies, there was no marketing program at UQ. By the time I'd finished my PhD, there was. And the university, UQ, was looking for people to teach into that program. And it was specifically looking for people who could teach courses in research methods, like social science, statistics, and marketing courses. And that was exactly my background. So the opportunity opened up and I took it.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. And I guess at the time, what was the PhD experience like? And I guess how did you sort of decide your research interest out of like everything? You have to narrow it down into like one subject for 4 years, 5 years.
Yes. Look, what I've discovered is that my real interests are in methods, and I think I've always been more interested in the methods than in the substantive questions. And I'll give you an example. I'm interested in psychological measurement, and econometricians have a perspective on that, and psychometricians have a perspective on that. And as I said before, my work tries to bring those two perspectives together. The economists are very good at making predictions about, at the aggregate level, overall, what is the population doing? Economists tend to look more at the aggregate level, whereas the psychologists are very good at understanding individuals and individual differences. And so my work tries to bring those two things together, making predictions about a sample as well as looking at individual differences within that sample. But your point was about the PhD and the topic there. I mean, I chose a particular area where it was actually logistics was the focus of the PhD, supply chain, and I thought that was an area where there's a lot of application of quantitative methods, and it made sense to sort of go into that particular area. But later I realised I was much more interested in the methods.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, so You said that you did some industry work. So was that between, I guess, your honours and your PhD, or?
Yes, it was. So there was some industry work at the end of my honours year, and I also did some industry work at the end of my PhD. And there were also opportunities through my degrees to do placements and so forth. I also taught full time at the end of my PhD, so I had a scholarship, and that was part of the decision. Having the opportunity to do a PhD with a scholarship was very appealing, and I did do that for 2 or 3 years, and then I took a teaching position at Griffith, and so I taught there for a couple of years, and finished the PhD part-time, and when I finished I was able to come across to UQ. So I think I've had a good experience at all 3 universities in Brisbane.
I won't ask you about your thoughts in case it's too scandalous.
Yeah, look, I think, each has its strengths, I think.
Oh, wow, what a safe answer, Len. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious. So you've done a bit of industry, you've done teaching. So how did you sort of, why was the academic life more appealing, and what kind of, what did you think of industry as well?
Well, I think that I sort of think about the different possibilities. So one of the decisions I made, as I said, I was interested in economics at high school, but then I thought, perhaps my employment prospects in business would be better if I do marketing versus economics. And as I said, I think I was being a bit too instrumental there. And then when I got to university, I realised that I liked what academics were doing, and that sort of took me back a little bit more towards the economics. But if there are parallel universes, then there's a parallel universe in which a Len Coote did an economics degree and not a business degree. And maybe a parallel universe where there's a Len Coote who has an industry career. But I think all those parallel universes would eventually converge on having an academic career. I think they all kind of come back to what I'm doing.
Oh, damn, that's actually quite beautiful, right?
Well,
yeah.
but I think if I had not gone through to the honours program, for example, I think I would have come back to research at some point.
Yeah, and what is it about research that, some people say, what is it, understanding the world, or what is it for you?
I think, again, for me, a big part of it is the freedom to pursue your own interests. And again, it's not freedom without responsibility. There's a lot of accountability that comes with it, but just that freedom to pursue the things that you think are important and worth researching.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, and then so you've done a lot of teaching, and then I think I saw along your LinkedIn, right? And then you were associate professor, or associate lecturer, get my terminology mixed up, and then you were head of marketing, and then you were deputy dean of the business school, right?
Yes.
Yeah, what was that like? I have no idea what a dean does, so
yes.
run me through the day in the life.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, again, I feel like UQ's given me lots of opportunities, and I've had the opportunity to serve as the dean of the business school, deputy dean, head of department before that. They're service roles, and you could think of the school like a college, and where there's lots of, I guess, collegial behaviour, all working towards a common goal. The service roles like dean, deputy dean, and so forth, you really are serving your colleagues, and what you're saying is, I'm willing to step out of teaching, and I'm willing to put on hold my personal research for a period and serve my colleagues in these roles. So they really are service roles, and certainly true today that they're very big roles. And just to give you some sort of sense, the business school has 200 full-time academic staff and about 100 professional staff. It has 10,000 students. It has revenue of about $250 million a year. It's a big enterprise, and those roles are really big roles, and I feel honoured to have had the opportunity to serve for the time that I did in those roles.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think one of the things I enjoyed most about those roles was learning more about my colleagues and what they're doing, and I think the bridge to industry as well. Like when you're in those roles, you're not only thinking about your colleagues and supporting them, you're also thinking about the links to industry and trying to understand what industry wants from our programs.
Yeah, cool. And so if you were to give like a pie graph percentage of what the dean does, like how much would be meetings, how much would be, I don't know, research, whatever, how would it break down?
In the business school, the dean's day is at least 80% or more focused on serving other people, and it's mostly meetings. What are the meetings about? There are meetings about the strategy of the school and the direction of the school. There are meetings about the school budget, the school's finances. There are meetings about the staff profile, the staffing needs. There are meetings about our programs and how those programs need to change or what we need to do to maintain them. There are meetings with industry, with our partners. There are meetings with students. But your day, your week, is almost entirely consumed by the service nature of those roles. And you're not teaching and you're not doing research, and you're really serving your colleagues.
Sounds interesting.
And functions. Lots of functions.
What do you mean by functions?
Lots of chicken dinners.
Oh!
Lots of functions, yeah.
Oh, wow. And I guess, is the dean also like responsible for like promoting people and like managing everyone in the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, did you have to, I guess, have any hard conversations as
Yes.
dean? Yeah, that's probably a big part of the role.
Mm.
Yeah. And I guess how does one become a dean? Is it like you send an application through and then you go for an audition, or?
Well, look, I was an interim dean, and
What's interim dean?
an interim dean is a dean that serves for a period, a transition period. So we had a dean, and the dean exited from the role, and I was serving in the role of deputy dean, and the opportunity presented to serve as interim dean for about a 2-year period. And then at the end of that period, a new external dean was appointed. But how did that process work? It was really my positioning as deputy dean that allowed me to take up the opportunity of serving as interim dean. And more generally, how does the process operate? It's a very competitive process. And the university it's a top 50 university worldwide, and it's going to do a worldwide search to find the best dean.
Yeah, so I guess how did the idea of dean come across your head? Was someone like, hey, Len, reckon you'd be a great dean?
Oh,
or
sure.
Was it...
Okay, well, I'll go back. I've always been interested in our students and in our programs, and from very early on in my academic career, I took an active role in the management of our programs, and I think that led to an opportunity to serve as department head, and I was in that role for 7 years. Might have been a little bit too long. But on the basis of being department head, then I was asked to be deputy dean, and it was on that basis that the opportunity came for the interim dean role. But it really started with showing a genuine interest in the programs at the school.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I've always had a concern for the school, its students, its programs. I mean, really, in my mind, our programs are our product.
Yeah.
And the primary demand for our programs comes from industry, and students are a source of secondary demand. And if you want to serve students, the best way to do it is to understand what industry wants and make sure that the programs bridge the gap between students as they enter and industry needs as they exit. But I've always had that orientation, that program focus, and I've enjoyed thinking about our programs, contributing to our programs, and I think that's why I was positioned to serve in those roles.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And I guess, did you have so many, I guess some lessons learnt during your time as dean?
Lessons learnt during that time.
Yeah, because Len,
it's
I
a
feel
very
like,
good question, Karen.
yeah, you're very you come across as a very gentle, very soft-spoken person. And Dean, I feel like you're gonna have to make some very, very hard decisions. And yeah, you're gonna probably offend a lot of people through like how you allocate your resources and funding, right? So, I don't know, like, did it really like push you out your comfort zone? You gotta take the leadership role, and then.
I think it depends on the model that you have in mind. And just an example, here are two models. There's a collegial model and there's what I call a managerial model. And my philosophy is much more aligned to the collegiate model, and that is the school is run by the academic staff, the academic faculty, and the dean is first among equals, is the philosophy.
That's good.
And that's very different to a managerial style where the dean might say that he or she holds all the decision rights and will exercise them independently of what the college, your colleagues think. So I think I had a very collegiate model in mind. That doesn't mean to say that there wasn't conflict. I think there were conflicts. But they were healthy conflicts. They were conflicts about things like the direction of the school, for example, the direction of our programs. And these are the things that we should have robust academic conversations about. So even within the collegiate system, there can be disagreements. I'm not painting it as a utopia. There can be disagreements. But the way to resolve those disagreements is through academic discussion and debate, not administrative fiat. Not a dean holding all the decision rights, making the decision. Ultimately, you have to make decisions, but a dean in consultation with his or her colleagues coming to a shared view. So that was the model that I had.
Oh, so did you sort of have to grab a consensus of everyone before moving forward?
Karen, I tried.
I can't imagine how long that would have taken.
Look, I think the other thing to keep in mind is that they are very demanding roles.
Yeah.
And
everyone wants something from you, Len.
And again, I was serving as interim dean with a fairly fixed time horizon, and I had to make decisions among what items I would prioritise.
Yeah.
And it's a very it's a big place. It's a very busy place. There's lots to do. But I had to make decisions about what the priorities would be.
Yeah,
and one of the priorities for me was the Advanced Business Program. And our first graduates are due to graduate this year.
Yeah, so tell me more about when you first proposed Advanced Business and then when it came into action. What was that time period like?
Sure, okay. Well, firstly, there were many hands involved in the Advanced Business Program. I was one of the hands, but there were many. And in fact, a lot of work had been done by the Executive Dean and his leadership team to lay the groundwork for the Advanced Business Program. So the opportunity was there. There was also the Advanced Finance and Economics Program, which had been successfully introduced. So I guess what I could see was there was the successful Advanced Finance and Economics Program. There was an invitation from the Executive Dean to develop an Advanced Business Program. I took the opportunity to work closely with the Executive Dean and his leadership team to make sure that the program came to fruition.
Ooh, Cool. And do you know like what year that idea was conceived until it was finally implemented in 2018?
I think it was fairly quick. I think it would have been it might have been 2015 or 2016.
Ooh, that's so much quicker than I thought.
Well, the advanced programs also are a strategy of the university, so there was a lot of university support for the new program. It still required someone to initiate the change within the school, but there was a lot of university support.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm also curious back to teaching. So Len, like nowadays, like what does your life look like? Is it like a solid, 40% teaching, or what's the day in the life? Len wakes up and then what happens?
Sure. Look, if I look at my contract says 40% of my time should be spent on teaching,
Ooh.
40% should be spent on research, and 20% should be spent on service and engagement activities. So we call that the 40-40-20 model, and you can cash that out on a weekly basis and say 2 days a week teaching, 2 days a week research, and 1 day a week service. Now, to what extent do I follow that? To implement that, you have to be very disciplined. And it's very easy, or I find it very easy to allow the teaching effort to expand. And the other complication is the pandemic and online learning. And I think what I've learned is that online teaching can be effective, but it is not as efficient as face-to-face communication. And for example, conversations that would take me 5 minutes in a computer lab take me 15 minutes online. Also, when we're online, well, in a lab, I can see what's on my screen, and you can see what's on my screen. And I can see what's on your screen. And I can see what you're looking at. Do you have your notes out? I can see what you're doing. I can see what your work environment is like. And I can help you to manage that work environment. But online, you might simply be looking at a laptop. And if you're looking at my screen, then you're not looking at your screen, in a sense. So I think the online learning environments are very challenging. The example I'm giving there is there not being the same screen real estate, but there's also all the email communication. It's just, I just don't think it's as efficient. It can be as effective, but it is much more time consuming. I think the pandemic and the changes that have flowed on from it have made me a better teacher. It's forced me to communicate in a more structured way with my students, which I'll continue even when we go back to the classroom next year.
Yeah, that's cool. And so if, a student wants to approach Len, what's your favourite, method of communication? Are you like, go to my consultation room, or should we do this through email, or Zoom it out, or what do you tell them?
Well, look, I think I had a very traditional mindset to begin with, and that was at lectures there'll be a presentation, and if you want some discussion, then we can have that in the context of tutorials or in consultation sessions. But I like the convenience of Zoom, being able to have a face-to-face without being face-to-face. So I think I've become quite open-minded about what the media is, whether it's a face-to-face or whether it's a Zoom. I'm quite open-minded about that, but I think the teaching's not as efficient.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and Len, what do you think? What are the challenges of being able to be a good teacher, and what makes a teacher great?
Hard questions, Glenn. Good questions. Hard questions. I think I've always strived to understand what's happening in industry and try to in some way bring that into the classroom or align what I'm doing with what happens in industry. And maybe in a business school it's easier to do that than in some other schools. But business is a collection of applied disciplines, and there is an industry audience for what we do, and our knowledge should be useful to that industry audience. And I think that that's what should be imparted to our students.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, and then you also, I'm kind of curious about that, that 20%, that service. So what is like, in my mind, service, I think of like volunteering. So like, what kind of service activities
Well,
do you have at
I think this
university?
interview is a good example of service and engagement.
Oh, really? Is it?
It's a
But
service.
I'm not like a staff member of sorts.
No, I mean, service can mean different things. Service can mean serving your colleagues.
Yeah.
It might also mean serving your discipline. And if you think about the way academic publishing works, academic papers are peer reviewed before publishing. So if
Yeah.
I write a paper and submit it to a journal, it means that there is another academic somewhere that's reading my work and providing me with comments before allowing that piece to be published in the journal that I'm targeting. So that's a service activity. That's serving your discipline. There's service to students. There's engagement with industry. Lots of things can fit into that
Sounds very
service
broad.
type box.
Yeah, because I was thinking that maybe there was like a fixed program that you could do for your service. Like, oh, okay, like big companies, they have like a once a day go volunteer at like some organization. So, yeah, but yeah, it's kind of cool that it's quite broad. So, I guess, how do you log this activity? Are you going to write down like, hey, I did a podcast with Karen, or how does it work? How does like the UQ, see like what you're doing?
Well, look, I may do that. I may write down that I did a podcast with Karen
Wow.
as part of a service activity, engagement
So
activity.
is that something I can tell other teachers, like as part of your service?
Yeah, you might think of this as an engagement activity.
Oh, wow. And is the 40-40 breakdown, 40-40-20 breakdown, is that all quite similar across all professors that are full-time?
Generally speaking, yes. I mean, the university has three types of contracts that it offers. The standard contract is a teaching and research contract, which is 40-40-20. Most of my colleagues here in the business school have that contract. Some of my colleagues have what's called a teaching focus contract, and they would be more maybe 60-20-20, 60 on teaching, 20 on research, 20 on service. And a small number of my colleagues in the business school have what's called a research focus position. So they might be 80% research and 20% service.
Oh,
Now that's
quite
more
interesting.
common in the research institutes of the university than it is in the teaching faculties.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. So if I'm counting up your 40, 20, oh, that is 100%. Never mind. Bad maths. Yeah, so I guess, how was your experience being on the podcast? We're going to wrap it up because I know you have to leave soon.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for the opportunity. I think there are really two messages that I'd try to highlight, and that is, it's easy to look back and give structure and order to what might have seemed chaos and chance.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to give advice, but I think perhaps the best advice is to always pursue the opportunities as they present themselves. Don't waste an opportunity. Always pursue the opportunities as they present.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, and we're pretty much at the end. So
Yeah, wonderful.
yeah, wave goodbye.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks. Bye.